David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. Today, I have a brand new pen from the Japanese brand Wancher, and it is another one of their collaborations with Sailor. So the design might look a little familiar. But this model has something a little bit different, which would be Wancher's in-house 18 karat gold nib. And the name of this pen is the Frozen Sake. What I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of this cool and crisp offering, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about it. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. And that writing sample might be a bit of an adventure. A few months ago, I sustained an injury to my hand, and now that it has had time to partially heal, I'm going through some physical therapy for some additional recovery, which involves a combination of casts and splints. A lot of fun, as you might imagine. Things are progressing well, but either I could stop making videos for a couple of months or power through it and do the best I can, which is what I have decided to do. So I appreciate your patience. And then also, thanks go out to the good folks at Wancher for providing the pen you will see today for review. The pen arrives in this nice softwood box. Whenever I see a box like this, I typically associate it with a Japanese pen. Now, I'm not sure how much boxes like these cost as opposed to standard pen boxes you see, but it would be cool if other brands outside of Asia started using these. Inside are some proprietary cartridges. And then there is a nice soft sleeve. And inside the sleeve, we have a pen. This is the Wancher Frozen Sake. Now, I said this pen might look familiar. That's because it is essentially a custom Sailor Pro gear. Everything on this pen is branded Wancher, but in regard to the pen, Sailor is the OEM manufacturer. I say this right up top because I don't want to give the impression that Wancher is producing an imitation Pro gear or anything like that. This pen is made from a translucent resin. The inspiration behind this pen is sake, the traditional Japanese rice wine. The color of the pen's cap and barrel represents glaciers and icebergs as a reminder of nature's wonder and power. It invokes the image of glacier water from the top of a mountain that is melted and kind of made its way down into a cool, pure river, where it's then turned into the crystal clear sake. Across the icy blue are flecks of silver powder, which reflect in the light, and the main goal of this design was to represent the fusion of Japanese nature as well as culture. Let's take a look at the parts and features of this pen. On the finial, there is an insert with that Wancher logo. The finial is flat and white. The color is meant to represent the color of snowflakes and ice, like I said. Then we have the standard Sailor clip. It's very functional and has the appropriate amount of tension. The cap angles up for pretty much its entire length, only straightening out at the very end. You can get a decent look at the inner workings of the pen through that translucent resin. On the pen I have, the nib comes very close to aligning with the clip. On pens where you can see the nib and where it's capped, I personally prefer it when the nib either faces like up in relation to the clip or down. I just feel it looks more aesthetically pleasing that way, so I'm glad to see that here. At the end of the cap, there is a band. The band is stamped with the company name, Wancher. It also says made in Japan. The cap band angles down, minimizing the transition between the cap and the barrel. The barrel is straight for an inch or so before beginning a slow taper to the end, where there is a silver band and is punctuated with another icy white piece. And the very end is flat. The cap twists off with 1.5 rotations, and underneath we have something I mentioned up top, which is something new for Wancher, that being their number 6 18 karat gold rhodium-plated gold nib. They do produce these nibs in-house. It's laser engraved with the company name and logo. There's varying levels of laser engraving quality. Some look better than others, and I feel the engraving on this nib is decent quality. And then here's a look at the plastic feed. The section begins with a very slight flare before angling up to a small step up to a band, which is part of the section housing, and then the resin threads. The section is rather short, so I find my grip spilling over to the threads, but they're not sharp at all, and I don't feel they encumber my grip in any way. The pen is on the small side of medium, but it's long enough for me to use unposted. The cap does post, and it does post securely. And that angled cap band does do a good job of lowering the step up from the barrel to the cap and creates a fairly smooth transition, devoid of any sharp edges that might be uncomfortable if they rub up against the inside of your hand. This is a cartridge converter pen. Sailor does utilize a proprietary system. 2 Sailor-compatible cartridges were included with this pen, as well as a Sailor-compatible converter. The Wancher frozen sake can be found on the Wancher website. I'll put a link to it in the notes below. The retail price is $300, which is pretty much the standard price for most Sailor Pro Gear pens that you'll see on the market. Those typically have Sailor's 21 karat gold nib, as opposed to this Wancher 18 karat gold nib. Thanks again go out to the good folks at Wancher for providing this pen for review. Now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons, and a writing sample. Okay, here we go with some size comparisons for the Wancher Frozen Sake. I just wanted to give another closer look at that material. I think it's nice. It's translucent enough to where you can get a little bit of a peek inside there, but it has some character to it. In regard to some size comparisons, here was the most recent Wancher Sailor collaboration, which was the Machada. And then here it is in comparison to what is a Sailor Pro Gear Slim, and that is the Yuki Sabaki, I believe, or Sabaki. Then here it is with a standard 1911 from Sailor. In regard to a couple of other pens, here it is with a Sailor 1911 large. And then here it is with a Platinum 3776. And then here it is with a Sailor Pro Gear 2, which I don't even know if they make any longer. It was not the most popular model. It had a bit of a different clip to it and is slightly larger than a standard Pro Gear. In regard to uncapped comparisons, here's what it looks like with the Pro Gear Slim. And then this is the standard 1911. And then here is the Platinum 3776. Okay, here we go with the writing sample. Oh, that looks worse than it really is. That's okay. Please, forgive my club hand here. But we have the Wancher. And this is the Frozen Sake. And this is a medium 18 karat gold nib. And I decided to use a Sailor ink that has been one of my favorites and I thought was unique, which is Sailor 123. This is what the ink looks like. It's a nice kind of purplish gray with some nice purplish sheen to it. It kind of looks similar to something like Venta Armada, as well as Troublemaker Petrichor. One of the things I enjoy is when I wipe off the nib. This is what the nib wipe off looks like. I always just thought that looked so cool. And that ends up turning into kind of a purplish gray, but I always think that's cool. This is what the small bottles of the 123 look like. It's not a ton of ink in there, but for the Pro Gears, you can get the nib in there just fine. Okay, here we go with the rest of the writing sample. I do find this 18 karat nib is pleasant. It does have a fair amount of feedback to it. You can push it a little bit to get some line variation. I'd say the ink flow is decent coming out of here. Well, let's try that again. It's hard to do that with only one hand. There we go. In regard to reverse writing, I'd say that it's a little on the faint side. And then in regard to some fast writing, the feed has no problems in keeping up. So there we have the Wancher frozen sake. I think it's an interesting addition to the Wancher lineup, especially with their sailor collaborations, and something worth checking out. Okay, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.